Mr. Ian Lawrence from NAPO.
John, thank you. Good evening, brothers and sisters. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you this evening. That said, I nearly cancelled my slot tonight on the basis that the economy is now fixed. The Tories are certain to win the next election, and Chris Galing's probation sell-off plans are a bestseller. The skies are glorious, hue of blue out there, and I see squadrons of flying pinks. Well, we're in pretty grim times, aren't we? As Mira has suggested, and other speakers will tonight. And the link, I guess, to the theme of your evening in terms of what my members and struggle they're facing is that this miserable, despicable government's austerity programme isn't just about controlling public finances, it is about destroying organised labour across society. Because it's strange, isn't it? A small outfit like NAPO, 8,500 members, have been a thorn in the side of the previous Justice Secretary who was sacked and is now a thorn in the side of this one. And he seems determined, driven almost, insanely driven, to push through his ridiculous transforming rehabilitation agenda, which, if you don't know much about it, will see 70%, yes, 70% of probation services work sold off to likes of, you know who they are, Serco, G4S and the rest. And this morning I spoke at a New Statesman Fringe meeting where the commercial director of G4S had the temerity to go on the offensive at the start of his address by saying there's no reason why G4S and Serco, despite being under investigation for fraud, shouldn't be allowed to win these contracts. And my response is quite simple. My mouth dropped to the floor, but when I recovered, I said, answer me a question. If one of the members I represent was accused of fraud, they'd be suspended. One rule for us, one rule for them. So I'll have 70% of our work hived off into 21 government holding companies, sold off to the cheapest bidder. And that will bring abject disaster to your communities. Because, of course, we're about defending terms and conditions. You'd expect that. That's what I'm here for. But the bigger threat is to your communities. The management of people in the offender system needs to be handled by skilled, knowledgeable professionals that know what they are doing. And these plans will open up the market, goodness knows I can use the word market in the context of probation, to all sorts of people, many of whom will have good intention, many of whom you might know through your communities, many of whom we work with in probation now already, actually trying to turn lives around. People who are committed and dedicated, but whose lives themselves will change because they'll be bound, hidebound by partnerships with the Sodexos and G4Ss as well. And they're about profit, not rehabilitation. They're about making the buck on the back of the formula, not about changing people's lives. And a regime, John, that will see people brought in to supply services for offender management who, even if they don't succeed, and you see a reoffending figure go upwards instead of downwards, will still be paid a fee for service. What a scandal. What an absolute abject scandal. I need you to go into your communities and tell people what this is all about. My colleague here, Mike Rayfield, has a fistful of videos. You've got to have a look at this sometime. It's a hoot and a half. And pass it around your friends. And if you need more, get in touch with NAPO and put you on. Admiral Grayling and the good ship Probation from Brighton Pier the other week. You get the drift. Look, colleagues, there's a lot I could say, and I know you've got other speakers to come in. This whole exercise is another example of what the government are about. They don't give a fig about public safety. They don't give a damn about people's jobs. Because this government, it seems, are trying to outstrip the last government, the Labour government, who actually privatised more jobs than Thatcher, I think, in the term of their office. And I know John has been a big critic of that. So we face ideology. We also face a minister and a government that don't want to tell the truth about what they're doing, as well as the farce over Serco and G4S and their alleged fraudulent activities, electronic tagging the dead, that's a new one, isn't it? A bit easier than tagging the living because they don't run as fast, but tagging the dead and not delivering prisoners to the right place, if at all, but still charging you and me for the privilege. But all that's trying to be swept under the carpet by Grayling. There's a risk register drawn up by Grayling's own department in the Ministry of Justice that actually tells him 15 times, Minister, you really don't want to do this. It's a risk to public safety, risk to public finances, etc., etc. He hasn't published that and he refuses all requests to do so. So there we are. That's the motive of the man and the mark of his character. So here we are. We face this particular challenge, and other speakers will tell you about their struggles. And I look to the mainstream parties. No hope with the Tories, although we're going there next week. I won't be making this speech, mark you. I'd love to, but I want to meet some friends. So we'll be putting a professional probation practitioner up there to talk more about risk, which I hope strikes a chord, at least with some of them. Because this might strike a chord with some of them. Under these plans, high-risk offenders, sex offenders for example, could find that there's no probation office for them to go and see the specialist who will be handling that end of the operation, the one part that isn't to be privatised, that all our people are specialists. You get my drift. We heard last week that in order to help these offenders with their intervention programmes, we will allow them to see their probation officers in a leisure centre or a swimming pool or a public library. Work it out for yourself. Doesn't quite make sense, does it? But this is the reality of what this is about. And I look around and I think, well, surely the Liberal Democrats, with an ounce of a little bit of socialism left in them all those years ago, might just say, this is crazy. But no, Nick Clegg, senior minister in the coalition condemned disgrace, has signed this off, signed it off, yet it's apparent to us when we go and see him that he knows nothing about probation at all. But the Labour Party have got to do more. They always have, but they've got to do more. And colleagues and I were absolutely distraught, appalled at not what Ed Miliband had to say at the TUC last week. It's a clever move, he was building bridges, we get all that. The theme of that Congress, for anyone that was there, was the real sense of fear and trepidation and horror amongst working people as to what this government is doing to our communities, to our jobs, to our livelihoods. Yet, there was no mention, I don't think I heard the word once, privatisation mentioned, as in, we are against privatisation. We might still privatise, but we're against it. As in, I hear what you say, comrades. This is going to be a major plank of our manifesto. For the first time in years, we're going to speak out and say what we stand for, not just what we stand against. And that's the message we've got to get across as well. It's not good enough. And I told Sadiq Khan that this morning as well. So they know what we think. And whilst they're doing quite a bit around the edges to support our particular struggle, I want Sadiq Khan to do one thing. If his would-be ministers can talk quite recently, as they did, about scrapping the high-speed 2 rail project, and I don't know how many millions, John, you might know more about this than me, that must have cost him pre-tender contracts, let alone what had happened if a government, any government, pulled out of it. You're talking a mere bagatelle in terms of probation service privatisation. Because what I'm saying is this, any competition, and I use that word glibly, any competition that doesn't allow my members the benefit of even competing isn't a competition. So it's fixed, it's corrupt, and the likes of Serwotka and G4S, not having been banned from the process, are surefire search to win that work. And what I want the Labour Party to say is this, we think that position is corrupt, and if we do take power or form a major party in a new government, we will revoke those contracts immediately. That's called opposition, that's called courage, that's called fortitude. That's what we expect from opposition, just that. And that's the clarion call that should go out from here tonight, colleagues, to your communities, because I can tell you, and I can go back heartened by what I'm hearing tonight, that my trade union, 8,500 of us, will this week be signalling a trade dispute with Chris Grayling and serving notice of a ballot for industrial action at the earliest opportunity. I will finish with this, because it's not just about us. We're 8,500 strong. We know there are limitations. We'll be looking to work with our sister union Unison in the justice sector. PCS, and the comrades here from PCS here tonight, and you may hear from them. The Prison Officers Association, they can't strike, can they? But never stopped them last week and the week before. And other unions forming a coalition of willing. General strike it ain't. I don't have a mandate for that as far as my members are concerned. But I do have a mandate. I do have a mandate for coordinated action, standing together against privatisation, standing together for our communities, standing together for what we believe in. Thank you for listening.